You're listening to The Kylo Show, the podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. In this week's episode, Danny and Brittany discuss how honor is ultimately rooted in worship. We all worship something, so if you want to know if you're actually worshiping God and help others do the same, then this episode's for you. And it starts right now.
Hey everybody, we are back with the Kylo Show.
Here we are.
In our pajamas still.
I know.
With our very festive backdrop
I know.
here.
I love that.
It's
beautiful.
It's very
good job, Ashley.
We make an ornament out of it and put it on the tree.
I know, or something.
It would be cute.
That should be our card, our
Christmas card.
Loving on Purpose card that we mail around the world.
You can't, if you're listening, you can't see this, but you have to go to
That's
YouTube
true. That's
to
true.
see it.
If you're missing the YouTube version of this, then I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's cute. You should check it out. But we're still talking about honor in our honor series, and really going after. We need a revival and worship.
We do. We need to reestablish the preeminence of our God in our lives, because it has got so easy to be distracted and worship all kind of stuff. I mean, there's just so many places of idolatry in our society, in our own lives, our hearts. We seek comfort in so many places rather than really going to God, allowing Him to tune our heart and our spirit, and then coming out from there. I think that's rampant.
Talking about idols, you would think with all the idols that gone wrong in the Bible, we would know better than to just easily give our attention and affection to something.
It's not hard at all, really, if you lose the worship. If you lose the lock on worship, there's so much competition for your affection and your attention and your devotion, and it's almost like sugar. It just becomes a habit. But where we focus most and what we prioritize most, it becomes our God. And crazy, but sometimes it's your family. Sometimes it's your children. Sometimes it's a spouse, or money, or status, or belongings, or whatever. It's not difficult to put something else in the God spot.
I was talking with Lainey just the other day. We were driving and we were talking about social media and her having an account or not. And I said, I trust you. I said, my concern is, how do you think you trust yourself with this freedom? Because it's so easy to, go watch TV, go be around other peers, or even, they get on my account at times. And that starts to influence their heart. It starts to speak truth, and it starts to change the direction in which they are focusing. Which is that an idol? Is that easily sways your identity and how you behave by giving that power? I guess if it stays longer than a few moments or something.
Well, it's the confusion over what identifies me, what satisfies me, what comforts me, what strengthens me, what nourishment is accomplished in me through something besides my relationship with Jesus Christ.
I kept saying it like it starts to define her. Like, this is what defines her. And we went back and forth towards just a great conversation about it, and my own struggle of not letting all these other influences define me, because I have to go to the source of knowing who I am, who I'm called to be, and who I serve. And going back to that place, even though this specifically social media platform, is so loud
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Mm-hmm. And, we've talked about healthy soul ties.
Mm-hmm.
And healthy soul ties are developed through time spent and vulnerability.
There's lots of that on social media.
And so, yeah. So, you get that little feedback thing on your phone says, hey, you spent way too much time
It
on
never
this
says way
screen.
too much
No,
time.
it doesn't. It says you're up, how
Yeah.
many percent? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's sickening to hear that, to see that. But then you can understand, oh, well, this might explain why I'm so anxious.
Mm-hmm.
This might explain why I feel so agitated. This might, this, all of a sudden there's a fruit to that access to my heart,
Mm-hmm.
to my thoughts, is something to watch over. And if I don't, then I will find myself right in the pit of the other gladiators, hashing out
Yeah.
who's right and who's wrong and who deserves to be punished and by who.
Yeah. I think of an outlet. If you go to an outlet and it's got all these different additional outlets that you can keep expanding how much power comes
Mm.
from this one thing. I plugged in something the other day and all the lights kind of flickered, and I was laughing. I'm like, this is unhealthy. This is a recipe for disaster right here.
Yeah.
If I keep expecting to get something from this.
Yeah.
And it does feel like that's the avenues of so many idols that can take place in forms that we didn't pay attention to because our heart isn't positioned towards just the one source.
Mm-hmm. And human beings are designed to worship.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a worshiping aspect to our spirit man that is looking for a place to plug in
Mm-hmm.
and to draw
Mm-hmm.
supernatural satisfaction
and full power.
Yeah. So what do I draw from? And when Moses gets the 10 Commandments, the first 3
Mm-hmm.
are about worshiping God.
Yeah.
Like, you will have no other God before me. You will make no idols. You will not use my name in vanity. Like, okay, there we go. Center people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your design is to center on God's presence, God's word, God's voice, God's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And when we bail on God is the ruler, I mean, this is what happened to Adam, right? So Adam, he basically, the temptation was, so you got a rule, huh? You got one rule. You got
the oppression.
Running around naked with your girl all day, but you got a rule? Seriously. Wow, what a bummer. Oh, man. God's afraid if you break his rule that you'll become not like him because he was created in his image. Really, you'll become the rule maker. Mm. That's what God's so afraid of, is you being the rule maker. Hey, big boy, why don't you do it, huh? You could be the master of the universe. And Adam falls right in that hole. Mm-hmm. And that is in the heart of man. And when our self-preservation gets triggered, when I'm missing out, when I have access to something that could pleasure me more, benefit me more, protect me more, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
I'm going for it. And what it costs us is covenant.
Mm-hmm.
This is adultery. Adultery is the offer to make the rules and abandon your covenant. This is idolatry. Idolatry is the invitation or the seduction to manipulate God by being God. Mm-hmm. And we get out of alignment, true worship of God, because without realizing it, I just tried to save my own life. Mm-hmm. And there's the promise. He who tries to save his own life will lose it.
Yeah.
And we are living in self-preservation central right now. That everyone is running around trying to save their own lives, And whether it's, I'm gonna get in this line and do that, or I'm gonna never get in a line and I'm gonna do this. You're like,
Mhm.
oh wow, okay. We might all want to just take a chill pill
Mm.
and worship the Lord.
Yeah. You did a message a little while ago at JC where you talked about kind of that little adjustments, and it feels like
Compromise, compromise,
it,
compromise,
and,
compromise.
and
Yeah.
that's it. That's what I think about with in worship. I'll just make little adjustments here. I'll just make little adjustments. I still go to church on Sunday. I still read my Bible every day, but I just little adjustments here because I give a little bit more access to something else.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more access to something else.
Yeah.
Well, it was a good. I mean, it was a good deed, but I gave a little bit more access, a little more permission.
Mm-hmm.
And even with Adam and Eve, when they fell, really they got consumed by shame and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they left the garden with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that when you give away your God spot to some other worship,
Yeah.
it's the next thing that wants to come in and rule is shame and fear.
Yeah.
And that just keeps the voice of self-preservation so loud.
Yep.
As you're constantly trying to get out of the cycle of shame and fear, but you seated yourself in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's choosing another God.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only one source of life, truth, unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness. There's only one source for that. Everything else is a counterfeit. Everything else has a life of trying to prove that you're worthy, trying to prove that you're valuable, trying to prove that you are lovable.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, no, you don't have to do anything. It's kind of like your love for a baby. Like, well, what'd that baby do? Oh, it kept you up all night, pooped on you, threw up on down your neck. But it didn't do anything, and you still just love it. That's our Father.
Mm-hmm.
When we're born again, boom, we've entered a family. And that's our design. That's the only way it's going to work. But we got a better idea, don't we? We always have a better idea. And that's what leads us into so much compromise, so much distraction, being disintegrated, I think is really probably the best word I have to describe what happens to people when they move away from the lordship of Christ. They are disintegrating.
Mm.
They're coming apart, body, soul, and spirit.
Yeah.
They're coming apart. The alignment with God, the alignment with His presence, His voice, His word is integrating. It's the integration, body, soul, and spirit, becoming whole, becoming Christ-like, is what happens in worship. We worship to integrate, and we move away from that, pick up false gods, and we disintegrate.
I think about I think it's Bill's quote that says, "If I live by the praises of man, I will surely die by it."
Yeah,
It's something like that.
die by the criticism of man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is I gave permission to an idol and I sought out its praises.
Yeah.
And that's what will kill me instead of being rooted into the heart of the Father and worshiping Him.
Mm-hmm.
And I have eternal life
Mm-hmm.
in His goodness.
I think we're in a generation right now where we've lived in so much comfort and we've lived in so much ease that we've just become horribly weak in our character. And when I think in the Bible where I see this happen before, we have King David, a man of bloodshed, a man of war. He's a man who was raised in hard times, but he brought about good times.
Mm-hmm.
And so his son Solomon comes along in good times
Mm-hmm.
and compromises Israel away by marrying foreign wives to keep the peace. And now Israel's loaded with idols because he doesn't know how to fight.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm smarter than that. And he ends up leading Israel right back into the toilet. And it feels like that. It feels like we're living in a day where we are so interested in finding peace and compromise that we are negotiating away the presence of God and filling the place He made for us with false gods.
Mhm. So staying under the authority of God is how we stay free and powerful.
Yeah, and a revival in worship is where it's got to start.
Well, let's do it.
Okay.
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 You and me and everybody else, let's do it. Let's do this.
Jesus.
That's what we've got to do. All right. Well, again, heavy topic in our
But
cozy
we got
pajamas.
our soft pajamas on.
Trying to make it a little bit more fun.
If you could hug us right now, we would be soft.
Yeah. Well, we're going to jump into our questions, so we will see you soon.
Christmas is 10 days away, so if you want some last-minute gifts or stocking stuffers, you're going to want to order right now so they can be shipped and arrive to your home in time. Go to store.lovingonpurpose.com to take advantage of our Christmas deals and promotions right now.
Okay, well, we are jumping into questions, and if you have a question, you should send it to us. And make sure you check out thekyloshow.com to do that, or send us your testimony.
We need questions.
We do.
We need questions.
We need you to ask us questions.
We love your questions.
Please. We love all the questions.
Yep.
All right. But this first question comes to us from Courtney.
Hey, Danny and Brittany. Thank you for doing the Kylo Show. As we move into the holidays, I'm nervous about being around my family because we all have such differing political views, and usually someone goes and starts a fight on whatever current thing is disrupting our world. How do I honor my family that believes differently than me without compromising the truth?
That's a common.
Yeah. This is the thread. Tis the season to meld a bunch of disagreements into a common environment. I think keep your love on. So I'm not jacked up with anxiety that I'm trying to defend my life in there. And B, focus on the connection. And so I would be open to saying, a lot of phrases like, that's interesting. I've not heard that before. I love this about what you're saying. Okay, well, I'll check that out. Or, but stay open so that they can hear or feel or see the message. I care more about you than about that topic. I care more about our connection than I care about winning this argument. And I will not participate in sacrificing our relationship connection, our family. I will not participate in sacrificing our family on the altar of politics, public opinion, accusation, or anything else.
What about when you respond to all in that way and they just want to keep talking about it? And you have I'm overflowing with, I'm gonna tap into my self-preservation mode and bring out my sword and go to war when I don't want to. But how do you have that healthy boundary? Like, what is a good kind of phrase or a roadmap to help them maneuver somewhere else and stay connected if possible?
I can see you feel passionate about this, and I really don't want to go down this road any farther because I can see a big crash up here. Obviously we disagree about some things here, but we don't disagree with loving each other. So as much focus as we can put on that, that's where I'd like to spend my time during this holiday season. Please pass the turkey.
It's great. I just want people to know that you can be able to stop.
Yeah. And this is boundaries.
Uh-huh.
This is honoring healthy boundaries. But you have to set them up.
Mm-hmm.
But you set them up, your eyebrows are raised, you're like, okay, eyebrows up, smile on your face, I love you. Don't you forget that. That has to be actually the pursuit of this whole thing, or you are going to get sucked down the toilet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think being able to stay open depends on what relationship you have with this person, and if you both enjoy kind of having a debate-like topic and can end connected. It's difficult, but if you are able to do that, then do that. That's one way. But the other of asking those those questions and then not. This is the part where I feel like people get stuck and change who they are because they're afraid they're going to offend you. So staying powerful, which means setting a boundary. Like, I love you, but I think I'm all done talking about this for today. Let's go play cards. Let's go watch a movie. Are we going to watch that movie? You said you wanted to watch that movie. I'd rather do that than do this. We never talk about it. Was because I want to stay connected during this time together. And this doesn't ever produce connection. No. So, yeah, I think all those maneuvers help them feel powerful, but remembering the boundaries is key.
I have good friends. I travel up to Reading regularly. And I have a couple of very close friends that we just bomb it out. We just come over the table at each other, raw. But both of us have the capability and willingness and practice of protecting our relationship while we do intensely disagree. But I only do that with people that have mature love.
Yeah.
Because the people that are willing to sacrifice our relationship to be right, I don't have.
You don't play that game.
I don't have any time for that.
Yeah.
I won't do that.
It's a good thing to identify
in
your relationship.
We're going to keep coming back to the love. We're going to keep coming back to the love. And that's the only way that I'll go into that disagreement with you, is that we have agreed to keep the relationship more important than this topic.
That's good. Very good. All right. Good question, Courtney. Next one comes from Daryl Ann.
Hi, Danny and Brittany. Thank you for doing the Kylo Show. Aren't Christians supposed to obey the governing authorities? How do we know when it's appropriate to obey and when it's appropriate to practice noncompliance? And is noncompliance dishonor?
Boom.
She's getting straight to the point.
Great question. This is back to the worship theme. This is, do I obey man or do I obey God? Well, it depends on who I fear more.
Yeah.
It depends on whose favor relationship is more important to me. Who do I actually believe is going to provide for me, protect me, lead me? Because if the fear of man is where I worship, then I will be drawn right into evil.
Yeah.
Absolute evil. But if I can, the fear of the Lord, the connection to my Father's heart is wisdom. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's a fountain of life. It protects me and removes me from sin. It's the place for me to be. So we have Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego that are not going to bow down. We have Peter and the apostle, different apostles, that essentially say, who are we going to obey? God or man? It's like, right. If I were in the 1950s and I lived in Georgia and there were all these race riots and let's say I have the governor, George Wallace, rises up and he's going to make sure that this oppression stays established. I'm going to have to decide, am I going to just watch? Am I going to support George? Am I going to participate with Dr. King? What am I going to do right here? The believers in that day had the same kinds of things that they had to face. Now, we all know what the right answer is today, but living in it right there, it was just as confusing as today. Just like the Vietnam War, just like the Civil War. There's all these situations where you are going to have to figure out in your connection with God where he's going, what he's saying, what he's doing, and then do it.
Mhm. It feels like Christians have not had for a long while in my generation and ones before me. I mean, the civil rights movement, you're on the very end of it as far as when you were born and all of that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's obviously there's still residue of things, but that right now we have a generation of people that want an answer, a black and white answer.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're saying, when they're in it, it wasn't black and white. It
No.
was the conviction of who you worshiped and what God says.
Yeah.
And that is really hard for my generation because we're used to black and white. Tell me the answer,
Mm-hmm.
right or wrong. I've read it in history books. I've not had to find conviction because I have been told what it is for years.
Yeah.
And I'm in my first, we have it in other ways, but as far as a global experience, this is the first time. To find that personal conviction is a new thing.
And you really have to fight the fear of man, because up until now, the fear of man has shaped us without us really realizing it. But it's when people get upset, the more people get upset, the more afraid we are of defying them. And so now you have all these people screaming this, that, and the other thing, and you have so many people afraid to show their conviction. So they just comply. They just give up their conviction. They adjust their conviction. They make you make excuses for why you're not showing up, rather than admit that you're afraid of being punished. You're afraid of being accused. You're afraid of the consequences of powerful people. This is where the fear of man comes from. It's not imaginary. It's real. You are going to experience probably painful consequences for showing your convictions. And that's the Civil War, that's the Revolutionary War, that is the Civil Rights Movement, that's Vietnam. All of those times in our history, if you show your conviction, you will be punished by the powerful voices that today are really powerful.
Yeah.
Like, this is like living the day when you would try to defy the church. If you tried, like Copernicus tries to say, hey, the earth is not the center of the universe. The sun is. Oh, do you repent? Recant that, and he went to jail. They put him in jail. They ruined the guy because he tried to show them that I'm not conforming to this thing that you're doing. And the whole of powerful society punished him into submission. And when government or any ruling class has the power to punish the whole planet, something went wrong. Because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so we got a idol on the planet that actually believes it is God, and everyone will bow down or suffer the consequences.
Yep. Oh man, that's why this whole
That's why we have
revival
pajamas
of
on right now.
worship
So
is
we just-
needed.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Good question though.
that's a great question.
Great question.
It's
Okay. The last one we have comes from Lonnie.
Hi, Danny and Brittany. My name is Lonnie Randall. I'm in the Tampa, Florida area. And actually, I attended Legacy School of Supernatural Ministry based on a lot of Bethel's teachings. So I've been exposed to a lot of your teachings, and I've read some books that you've written. So I'm just really thankful for what you're teaching right now, keeping your love on. And my husband and I did do your communications course a few years ago, but we have been having a lot of disagreements. We're not spiritually on the same page. I'll be honest with you. He thinks I'm uber spiritual. So I can't help but trust and believe in God for everything. And, I do ministry kind of secretly on the side. People don't know who I am. I'm not exactly somebody who's well known, but I love helping people. And so there's just a lot of things that we don't agree on and see eye to eye on. And I know that I'm praying for his heart to be more open to the Holy Spirit and the way that the Holy Spirit works and the kingdom versus the worldly way of looking at things. Do you have any advice on how to keep my love on and keep the peace even through disagreements? Because managing conflict is something that we're not really taught. And that's something that seems to be a big problem, especially today with all the division that's happening in our country. But it's hitting my home pretty heavily. And
It's hitting home hard.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
I think the key is going to be prioritize the connection. There has to be a connection before you really can do a confrontation. If you're disconnected and you try to work out a confrontation, you try to work out a disagreement through a confrontation, you're just throwing gasoline on the fire.
Yep.
Your worst you, as nice as you shape it up to be, is going to talk to their worst them, who maybe did less work on nice and is more interested in survival. That's what you're bringing together. The two worst that you have, you're both afraid. There's distance, there's disconnection. Anxiety has filled the spot where love once resided.
Mm-hmm.
And now my worst me talks to your worst you, and we're always surprised it goes bad. Like, no, it's that. Do the math.
Mm-hmm.
So I would prioritize, we need to get our connection back.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we connect? How do we connect? What are the love languages that I can supply that you have? What are the love languages that I can make a target for you? My goal with you is connection. So get some momentum in your connection, and then look at that topic, issue, whatever it is, and see if it's as big a deal, because it probably isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get your connection back, it's probably not that heavy breathing dragon that you had on your back while you were disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something that needs to be resolved, then go in when you have something to protect, and you'll talk different. You'll address things different. You'll set different boundaries, and you'll end up with a different result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. I think one of the things I was guilty of is trying to go in and change Ben's ideas or his agenda or his belief to something. And that just adds for more mess.
Mhm.
It's because my goal really isn't to connect with you as much as it is somewhat to try and control you
And correct you.
and because I think it's going to be okay if we
No.
end up over here. Well, let me help you get here.
I just know if you saw what I saw, you would want what I want.
Yeah. So paying attention to if that's something that's in there in the pursuit of connection, to make sure you remove it and really be able to listen, lean in, and get that connection back so you can't do all of the conflict stuff.
Totally.
Yeah. So good. Well, these were good questions.
Yep. Thanks for those.
And love the questions. So please keep sending them.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to jump into our testimony.
Super.
Give a gift that can actually transform a life, a marriage, and a family. You can't say that about every gift, but you can say that about every gift on the Loving on Purpose store. So to go to the online store, visit store.lovingonpurpose.com. That's store.lovingonpurpose.com to get your Christmas gifts right now.
Okay, so we're going to jump into testimonies. I wish I could do a drum roll or something. I always feel like we should lead in.
Some
really exciting testimonies are fun.
Party paper.
Yep.
Confetti. What do you call it? What's that
Poppers,
word? What's that word I'm searching for? Yeah.
All right, but the testimony for today comes to us from Dave.
The Kylo Show is an absolute lifeline. I mean, every week it's a profound and yet simple message. And I'm so glad it's weekly, because there's boomerang effect in my life. And I can so quickly kind of resort back to thinking and acting the way that I'm used to acting and thinking. And there is every week, another podcast, and it helps realign me, inspire me, give me courage, and just really practical advice that really helps implement these changes in my life. So yeah, I'm just so grateful. Please keep them coming. My family's grateful. My friends are grateful. And I don't know, it's just amazing. Thank you so much. Love you.
Dave. Love Dave.
Yes, he's a good
Yeah.
guy.
Yep. He should have a podcast. He's got kind of a buttery voice, doesn't he?
He has a fun voice. I think his accent helps.
Yep.
He does have his own Boris the Robot. So
That's true.
It's not
Heart smart.
Yeah, it's not a podcast, but it's a whole like series for children.
Yep.
So you can check that out. It's pretty good.
He's a genius.
He is a smart guy.
I like him.
I was at a wedding and someone else was saying the same thing. They love the weekly show.
Yeah.
They're so grateful for it. Very much what Dave was sharing is what they were telling me at this wedding, and how this young married couple are just so grateful for speaking truth and encouraging and reminding us to love people. And that it was
it's pretty fun. You know, we're at this point, we're over the 10,000 downloads a week mark. You know, we're like, wow, that's significant. That's going to stack up over time, and it's just climbing. I mean, it was half that just a few weeks ago.
I know we're getting closer to our 1 year anniversary.
I know.
Which we probably won't be in our pajamas.
No,
I have enjoyed being in our pajamas.
It is kind of nice. It's very
a little
comfy.
more relaxing.
I know. We do need a little fire sometime here.
But no, I'm grateful for the resource of Kylo and Culture of Honor, and I mean all of the books that you have, and but the application is often what I hear people are struggling with when we meet with couples or individuals. It's the application part. And it does feel like the Kylo Show is helping them see and unpack and, giving examples of the application, which is, a great tool to have when you're actually trying to change your life and better the world.
And hopefully we're giving some context to where and how and when, as well as this stuff isn't like a one-shot wonder. You try it and it works, and there you go, and never have to do that again. Like, oh no, probably next week.
It's like funner room with children.
Yeah, it's people. The people just won't stay. You won't stay there. Right? They keep moving around. So it's a little bit like gardening, or pretty much anything else that dealing with something that's alive. It just keeps changing, and it just keeps introducing new challenges. So have the right tools and prepare the soil well, and it is very fruitful, and you end up growing what you want instead of just ending up with a bunch of crazy.
Which we have a world going on that's crazy, and we've been talking about that.
Yeah.
And so being able to help encourage people to go back to the source and pulling on that source and chasing after. I love this concepts of we need revival, but in all these different areas. And this episode was all about revival and worship and the direction of, who do we fear, God or man? And what are we going to do with this?
Yeah.
And how are we going to, I like country music. I will admit that on radio or podcast. But it's easy to get sucked into all the fun melodies and different things. But pretty soon I realized I haven't really probably listened to anything that wasn't country in a while.
This is my childhood classic rock. What, they said that? I can't believe they said that. I never heard that before.
Adult, yeah. Oh, gosh.
Or when you're in the car with your grandkids. Whoa, jeez, I'm sorry. Turn that off.
But I found this station that is called Country and Faith, and it has blended. I mean, my favorite worship songs are on there, along with more kind of faith-centered country songs. But it's been really a great addition to the car because I feel like we're still getting that country flair that I love so much. But I also am getting my worship in because all of a sudden, I've got Chris McClarney's new songs on there that'll pop up, and or Lauren Daigle's on there, a different song, and then I've got Thomas Rhett. Those are all great things to be listening to,
Yep.
and to be able to, I don't know, stay in this place of worship and tenderness to the Holy Spirit. It gives you more confidence
Mhm.
to be a lover of people
Mhm.
when I'm a lover of Christ.
Mhm. So true. It's where your authority comes from as well. We are men and women under authority, and
Mhm.
we understand how it works. And when we lose that connection, we're operating in false authority, which is how we get so wrapped up in fear.
Mhm.
So keep it real, keep your love on,
Mhm.
keep your worship going,
Yep.
and we'll see you next week.
Because whole healthy families are going to save the world.
Boom.
So go worship together.
There we go.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to join us next week when Danny and Brittany discuss the truth about who God is, who we are, and how we were designed to love and live together. Never miss an episode of The Kylo Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. Submit your questions and testimonies to thekyloshow.com. The Kylo Show is produced by Ali Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck, Leah Alexander, Anna Hill, and Sherry Silk, sound engineer and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter Christian Zamora. Thanks for listening. See you next time.